What's up, Wildcats? Welcome back to Nico Connection. I'm your host, Aton. I'm here with my guest, Oliver Brosnan. How are we doing today?
I'm doing great. Feeling great.
Yep, great day out here today. You see, I see you got the South Carolina on. I have the Illinois on. They did play each other this season in college football. In general, what are you feeling about South Carolina in the upcoming season?
You know, I'm feeling great about them. We had a pretty decent year this year. We lost a few guys into the draft, but got a good QB coming up, and he's in the Heisman race, so it should be fun to watch him.
Yep. Both young teams definitely going to be big contenders in their conferences, South Carolina being the SEC, Illinois being the Big Ten. With them both being young teams and NIL affecting young players right now, what do you think are the long-term effects of NIL in college sports?
I think it definitely affect the younger teams with bringing in the high school guys with bigger money and stuff, but I think, it's going to have a big impact on these type of teams.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure. We even see the effects with Carson Beck going to Miami.
Yep.
Cam Ward obviously was first overall pick in the draft. What do you think he's feeling right now? How do you think he has to feel having to fill in those big shoes for such a great player?
I think he's got a big void to fill with Cam Ward obviously going first, but he's got a pretty solid team around him, so I don't think it should be too hard because he's a good player himself. So.
Yeah. On top of the transfer portal, now JUCO athletes, their 2 years in community college don't count towards their 4 years playing in on the collegiate level. So how do you think that will affect recruiting as well?
I think it could take away from the younger guys, because they're going to want to get the more experienced JUCO guys coming into their team. So it definitely could affect just more of the transfer portal stuff.
For sure. And going from college to the NFL draft was recently.
Yeah.
What are you feeling are the biggest late round pickups, or the guys who were just expected to go and didn't go?
Well, I think the Bears got a steal there with Luther Burden. I think he's a very good guy to pick up. And I think Shadur dropping to the 5th round, that really shocked me because
for sure
he was projected top 5.
Yep.
So.
And speaking on Shadur, the Browns quarterback room looks absolutely horrific.
Yes.
They have Deshaun Watson, Shadur, Kenny Pickett, Dylan Gabriel, and Joe Flacco. That's a horrible pick to pick from. But the Browns are going to have to do it. But who's your choice right now?
I think I'm going to go with Joe Flacco just because he's got the veteran. He knows what he's doing out there. But I think maybe later in the year, Shadur definitely can make his way up there. I don't think Dylan Gabriel's going to see much time, though. For sure. Joe Flacco, the former Raider, of course. We'll jump that ship now. Talk about the Raiders and Lamar Jackson. Lamar Jackson, some would say he was snubbed out of the MVP this year, the 2-time MVP himself. How do you think this season's going to look for him as he's had constant playoff failures and just him being the 2-time MVP, not back-to-back anymore, but how do you think the season's going to look for him trying to get the Raiders in good playoff position? Well, I think they definitely have a good offense. They just signed Derrick Henry to another extension. They're really building up their defense, so I think the defense, continues to be great. I think he could shine with Derrick Henry and a few more wide receiver options there. Yep.
Derrick Henry being one of the best running backs in the league, and another upcoming running back that has a similar game style, Ashton Jinty, going to the Raiders in this draft. What are we thinking on that? What's our thoughts on that?
I wanted it on the Bears, of course, but I think he's going to be a great guy. They just need to build that O-line, and I think he'll shine at the Raiders for sure. For sure.
Another young player that had an unfortunate end to his season, Tank Dell, went out injured with another ACL injury. Yeah. What do you think that process is going to look like for the Texans and for him coming back to such a young team? What do you think it's going to look like?
Well, Stephon Diggs obviously leaving. I think he's going to move up in the depth chart. He's obviously good, but just staying healthy is definitely a big thing for him. So if he can stay healthy, I think he's definitely getting the wide receiver 2 position there. Always,
for sure. And one of the things that I've seen on the media is they're asking players, what's a rule change you would make in the NFL? Do you have anything in mind that you would change in the game?
I think the OT rules, definitely both teams getting possession, that's a big thing. Because that's decided a lot of controversial games, so definitely changing that up.
And even a smaller thing like the kickoff rules, what do you think about that?
I think they should just go back to the old one, honestly. I don't see what was bad about that, and this one's a little weird to me. But,
Yeah, for sure. And there was big controversy about them banning the hip drop tackle last year, but we didn't really see any of those penalties being called. So, what do you think about the league putting in rules that they're not gonna actually use?
I think it's just kind of stupid because obviously, yeah, you said they're not calling it, so what's the point of banning it? If it's not happening or it's not getting called.
For sure, for sure. So jumping ship to a completely different sport, but the Champions League final is slowly approaching.
Yeah.
We have Inter Milan versus PSG. PSG hasn't won the Champions League in a long time. I don't even think in my lifetime.
No.
So what are we feeling?
I'm definitely feeling PSG. They got one of the Ballon d'Or favorites, Dembele. He's been balling all season, and they're just a very composed, chemistry-wise team, and I think they're gonna top Inter easily.
I mean, people love to say defense wins championships, and that's what Inter has been absolutely doing stellar with. I think their attack is a little lackluster, but I think they'll be able to get it done on the day.
Yeah.
And also on top of that, they did go through a tough Barcelona team with a young rising star, Lamine Yamal, only being 17 years old. So what do you think about these really young players getting starts for professional teams and these big contracts?
Well, I think it's crazy to see because he's only a high schooler. He's a year older than us, so I think it just shows like the levels in Europe. It's just that these kids are just getting millions of dollars and they're so good. But I think it's really cool to see like kids our age shining on the big stage.
We see not just in Europe but in America. We have Kevon Sullivan, Chase Adams, Tanner Rosenborg, Julian Hall. What are we thinking about the soccer landscape in America in general?
I generally think it's getting better. There's a lot of leagues with the MLS Next, like where they are at, like the MLS Next Pro 2 or whatever. I think it's a good stepping stone for them, whether they want to go to college or straight to the MLS. But I think it's developing in the right direction.
For sure. Some would say the opposite. They would say that these kids are playing too many games at a young age. Social media is getting in their head and whatnot. What would you say to those people who think the opposite?
Well, I mean, I do agree with they're playing a lot of games, but they're getting experience. They're playing guys way older than them, and that's what you're going to need is experience if you're going to want to go play in Europe or just in the MLS.
For sure, for sure. Speaking of experience, we do have coming up LeBron James last season. He's one of the most experienced players in the NBA, playing the most seasons in the NBA for a player in a while. What do you think is the best case scenario end for him?
I think just to end on a good season and high hopes. LeBron needed to continue his legacy, but as long as he's happy with retiring, I think that's good for him.
Are you a LeBron or Jordan guy?
I'm a Jordan guy, as you know.
For sure. We've had long-winded arguments about this.
Yeah,
one.
we have.
Yeah, but personally, I do think LeBron is better. Longevity matters, ladies and gentlemen. Speaking of Jordan, your favorite player, Bulls franchise player, probably best Bulls player of all time, best basketball player of all time, in your opinion. But what do you think is the right direction for the Bulls right now to get back to where they were back in the 90s?
Well, I think it's just it's a matter of time. When you have a good draft this year, we got a few good guys: Kobe White, Josh Giddey. So I think if we can build around those guys and make some good moves, I think we can definitely get back to where we were in the next 5-10 years.
Well, we're in the NBA realm. I want to go ahead and talk about the Warriors, and Steph Curry and Draymond Green are also on the tail end of their careers.
Yeah.
For them also, what do you think is their best case scenario going in the next season?
Well, going into next season, depending on how these playoffs go, I think it really depends on that. But again, just having a good season, they're getting playing time and kind of just building up their team and the younger guys on their team, I think is the best case scenario for them. For
sure. Speaking of playing time, we are out of time. So that will be it for Nico Connection. I'm your host, Tonki Kama. Thanks for watching.